Recently, I met a 74-year-old man who was a high school principal and then went on to be a superintendent in the school district in Clarion County. He has ALS, or Lou Gehrig's disease now, a debilitating neuromuscular disorder. He lives in the Diocese of Erie, Pennsylvania. He told me that there are two German parishes just 5 miles apart that were built by German immigrants in the 1880s and the 90s. St. Michael's and Freiburg, and St. Joseph's and Lucinda. He mentioned that for over 200 years, these two parishes were at odds with one another and would not worship or pray with each other. Now, the pastor of both of these parishes, it was his task to try to unify them. He had his work cut out for him because for over 200 years, going back to Germany, there had been a long-standing hatred between these two different people. They could not stand each other. Like the Hadfields and the McCoys, they did not get along. The man said that there was a sign over his door as a high school principal that said, "Students who get in trouble most often in school generally have weak parents." Love is the key in today's readings. The Jewish rabbi had 613 laws. Jesus, a Jew himself, simplifies them by quoting Deuteronomy 6:4, the first commandment of the law, and bringing it together with Leviticus 19:18, the second commandment of the law. When Jesus gives us a breathtaking and utterly divine compassion for the central tenets of both the Jewish and Christian traditions. The first quotation from Deuteronomy is the great Shema Israel. Shema in Hebrew means hear, listen. The Shema is the centerpiece of Jewish life and worship, and the foundation of Israel's covenant with God. Moses instructs the people of these holy words that are inscribed on their house's door and on the gates of one's property. In our own day, we see that a mezuzah is a small decorative entry into a Jewish home, that an observant, faithful Jew reverences the Shema each time they go in and out of their doorway by kissing their hand and touching the mezuzah. The Shema is recited by every devout Jew every morning and every evening. That mimics the Christian prayer of lauds and vespers at the beginning of the day and at the end of the day. To this very day, every Jewish service begins and ends with a Shema Israel prayer. We would do well to learn it ourselves. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, Adonai, the Lord is one. You shall love the Lord your God, Adonai, with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, and with all your strength. In addition, Leviticus 19:18, you should love your neighbor as yourself. The only love of neighbor is because we love God first. And thus Jesus brings together a distillation of the 613 laws of the Jewish people. The great commandment to love God and love neighbor go hand in hand. They are inseparable for one another. The Jewish people were to drill these words into their children and into their children's children, to speak them at home and abroad, whether they were at busy or at rest. They were to bind them on their wrists as a sign, to let them be a pendant on their forehead, to write them on their doorposts of their houses and on their gates. Never make the mistake of separating our love for God and our love for our neighbor. They are forever joined. We cannot love God and love our neighbor enough. Now we know that nothing is perfect in life but Jesus' love. None of us has been loved perfectly in our journey of life. No one comes from perfect parents, or has a perfect family life, or has perfect friends, or a perfect spouse, or perfect children, or perfect grandchildren, or a perfect school, or a perfect neighborhood, or a perfect city, or a perfect religious community, or a perfect parish. Some folks spend their entire existence waiting for that perfect love, while they're missing out on other loves, imperfect though they may be. St. John of the Cross, a great mystic, said, "Where there is no love, put love, and you will find love." Love is thus learned. It is a skill. It takes time and practice and hard work. If love were simple and easy, Jesus would have said it only once, to love one another. But he knew it was not easy. And truly the work of discipleship is a work of love, which takes the mastery of an entire lifetime. St. Francis of Assisi in the 13th century, a great follower of Christ, who had the most disciples of any other saint, says, "Our friends then are those unjustly afflict on us trials and ordeals, shame and injustice, sorrow and torments, martyrdom and death. We must love them greatly, for we will all possess eternal life because of what they bring to us." What profound wisdom that St. Francis offers us, that our friendship with the Lord and our friendship with others goes through difficult, challenging times, and yet we must be faithful to love. Father Pedro Arrupe, who is a Jesuit superior, 28th Jesuit superior of the Society of Jesus, spoke of falling in love once on Valentine's Day by saying, "Nothing is more practical than finding God, than in falling in love in a quite absolute and final way. It will decide what you will do when you get out of bed in the morning, what you will do with your evenings, how you will spend your weekends, what you will read, whom you will know, what breaks your heart, and what amazes you with joy and gratitude. Fall in love, stay in love, and it will decide everything in your life." As we celebrate the gift of priesthood this week, the priesthood of Jesus, it is a vocation of love. And our Christian love is to be a witness of God's love. And the best way to fulfill this command is to share that love with others, and to share that love in the church, that we gather as a Eucharistic community that are nourished by that love. And so I close with the words of St. Catherine of Siena. We are rewarded not according to our work or our time, but according to the measures of our love.